This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Peter H.
Peter!
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm an alcoholic. Peter. This is such a conservative-looking room. No. What is a circus in town or something? Or no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Michelle said, don't be afraid to talk about, drugs, and don't be afraid to swear. I thought, that's great, because, I can never remember if I'm, because I go to AA and another program, and I can never, have to remember, it's different. When you go, in AA, it's like, hi, can we keep it down in the back, please? And then in NA, hey, shut the fuck up in the back, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's so hard to, it's like, say, I stay over in Venice. Or if it's AA, you say, we took a place at the shore. It's how, yeah, it's so hard to keep it straight. I want to apologize for not wearing a suit. My sponsor, Howard P., says you should always wear a suit when you speak. And I went to put on my suit pants, and all three pairs had shrunk since the last time I talked. I don't know what's up with that, But, they say, the road gets more narrow, but your ass gets fatter and wider, Wider is the right word. Thought of that all day and I blew the line. Happy birthday to Dana and Dan. That was so nice. Nice to hear you. I'd like to thank Michelle for asking me to speak. And I love the Marina Center. I have a fairly short commute here to the Marina Center. I used to live at the Clare Foundation all the way down here at Sawtell in Washington for a couple of years. And there was a guy named Artis, and he was a very nice man. He was a cook. And he said to me, oh, Pete, he said, you're going to go far. You stay sober, you're really going to go far. And I live about I own my house. From there, I've made it about 155 feet in 26 years. So at that rate, I'll be at the beach by the time I'm about 100. So I didn't grow up in California. I grew up in Pennsylvania, in the sticks of Pennsylvania, where the Almanac of American Politics calls it a rural industrial slum, where I grew up. And we lived in the nicer part of the rural industrial slum. My father was an industrialist. And growing up was very normal. I mean, if you ever watched Leave It to Beaver or, Ozzie and Harriet or Father Knows Best, that's what it was. Just this little town. We didn't have any crime, didn't have any problems. Nobody locked the doors. It's just, I had the kind of dad that takes you hunting and fishing, and, I was really, my grandfather was a town doctor, and it was just really cool. But I was a really neurotic kid, and my life was really screwed up from the beginning, and I don't really know why, but it just was. And I always felt separate from the other kids and different from the other kids and less than the other kids, and like they were better friends with each other than they were with me, and it's just how I felt. And I also was a frightened kid, scared kid. I always thought something bad was getting ready to happen, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, And the teacher would come in, the school nurse would come in and whisper something to the teacher, and I was sure that she told her, we just found out that Pete's terminally ill, when there was an electrical storm, I'd jump into bed between my parents when I was 13 years old, I was just terrified of everything, and we would go on a vacation and to the lake, Conneaut Lake, and as soon as we would get to the lake, I'd get a pain in my side and we'd have to come home, and so they even took my appendix out in hopes that we could then go on vacations, oh man, then I went to high school. It didn't get any better. I wore horn-rimmed glasses and braces and a pocket protector before being a nerd was fashionable. Do you know what I mean? And I hung out with the really cool guys. I wasn't one of the cool guys, but I hung out with the really cool guys. I was like a sidekick, like Patsy Weber. I was like the sidekick guy. And it was I just was like a fish out of water. Felt different from everybody, separate from everybody, and was just so scared that something bad was getting ready to happen. And then it came time to go away to college, and I told the guidance counselor, nobody would marry her, Miss Craig, LaRue Craig. You know, they always had like the college of the month. I think they got a kickback. She's trying to get me to go to Slippery Rock College, right? So anyway, I told her, Miss Craig, I want to go to college in Ohio. And she said, well, why do you want to go to college in Ohio? I said, because you can drink at age 18 in Ohio. And that seemed like as good a criteria as any, all the things being, given this being the same. My brother went to college and law school before me. He had an illustrious student career with a beer in his hand and a, driver and putter in the other, and I thought, well, that sounds good to me. And so I'll tell you a little bit about why. This little steel town where I grew up had like maybe 5 or 6 steel mills. And each steel mill had 4 plant gates, one for each direction of the compass. And each plant gate had 3 taverns across from it. And so this little town of 12,000 people probably had like 40 taverns, probably Guinness Book of World Records. And every morning and afternoon and evening when the mill whistles blew at 7 and 3 and 11, everybody went back and forth from the plant gate to the tavern. I don't know when the hell they ever went home, and that's where life happened. And I couldn't wait till I was old enough to go where life happened. Now, my grandfather, on my mom's side, Grandpa Voidovich, I was named after him, and appropriately so, because he always had a glow on. And he would take my cousins and me up to the bucket of blood and would sit on the little stoop outside, and he would go and get a shooter, and Grandma would come by and say, oh, Grandpa just went in there 1 minute ago, and I've been covering up for alcoholics ever since, mostly myself. Everybody drank. My mom drank, my dad drank, my brother drank, the neighbors. The Lurches didn't drink, so we weren't allowed to play with their kids. Because they were freaks. And so, I went away to college, and I did okay. My first year of college was just the regular, uncomfortable in my own skin, scared, and I got okay grades, and I played a little sports, and I pledged a fraternity, but mostly I was just like a fish out of water. And then in the spring quarter of my freshman year, I was with this guy, Steve Strong. I'll never forget. He was from Pittsburgh. He drove a little blue car, drank Duke beer. And we went to Reed's Bar, the college bar, which would become an important institution in my life. And there I met Eve, the barmaid, who would become a very influential person in my life. And Eve was really, very buxom, and platinum blonde hair. And she was like 70 years old. She had been like a stripper back east or something, and she said to me, what are you going to have, honey? And boy, talk about love at first sight. Because, see, I knew I was going to get served. And not just the 3.2% beer that you're allowed to drink between the ages of 18 and 21, but served. And I said, boy, I'll have a shot. Yeah, that's it, a shot. And she said, a shot of what? And I said, a shot of gin. That's it, a shot of gin. Yeah, so I had about 10 of them, And this was not Tanqueray or Boodles. This was like, Old Cuyahoga or whatever they have in Cleveland. And, man, we were riding around campus, and I was thrown up out of the guy's window. I'm going, isn't college great? And can't you smell the flowers? He's like, well, actually, I can't, And I'm like, well, you're the best friend I ever had. And I knew this guy like all of a week, right? And I was euphoric, I was really euphoric. And the only other time I had ever felt like that was when I got my appendix out, and they prepped me with Demerol. And I didn't feel separate from or different from or less than. I felt very much a part of everything, and I thought everyone was my dear friend. And you know what I thought? Instead of something bad getting ready to happen, I'll bet something good's getting ready to happen, The book of Alcoholics Anonymous says people drink essentially because we like the effect produced by alcohol. I love the effect produced by alcohol. And I still do. I didn't come to AA because I thought it would be like a virtue to be sober. I got here like a day before I was going to die, so I was kind of brought in kicking and screaming, And so anyway, I told the nurse, you have beautiful hair and you have beautiful hands, and I gave her my phone number. She was like 35 and I was like 15, right? Gave her my phone number. So I was euphoric again this night, and so what did I do? I went back to the bar stool the next night. And as my mother, who paid the tuition, pointed out, I then went on to squeeze 4 years of college into 8 years. And So, and I had the alcoholic personality from the beginning. Dishonest. I would just as soon lie as tell the truth. I never understood why anyone would say something that would get them into trouble when they could just say something else and not get them into trouble. It never made any sense to me at all. I'm like, this guy's a sap, you know? Why would anybody admit anything, you know? That's why I love President Clinton. He's like, not me, you know? And then only when he had to, all right, you know, I did it, you know, and then, okay, got me. You know, and that's sort of how I was, you know. And, you know, I love that commercial when Obama and Hillary were fighting it out and they showed the phone ringing, you know, at 3 in the morning, and you see Hillary's little bony hand come out and get the phone. Who do you want to have answer the phone? Like, well, can you just imagine? I would, if I was Obama, I would have made the ad like, she picked up the phone, hi dear, it's me, you know, and she'd, I know it's 3 o'clock, you know, and then she'd say, look, the limo ran out of gas. Where are we? We're down at the boom boom room, you know, and be like, good night, Trixie, night, Bambi. Honey, could you have Hillary leave the south portico door unlocked, please? And I know it's 3 o'clock. I mean, can you imagine? I know, sorry, I don't know what I can do that. So, gosh, you know. Oh, so politics, right? So, I'm in like my third senior year or something, and I'm watching a George McGovern ad on television, right? And he's talking about ending the war and kicking Richard Nixon out and stuff. And I thought, man, you know, I'll go work for him. So I dropped out of school and I went to work for George McGovern. And I'd never been out west of Ohio, and they sent me to Oregon to work in Oregon. So I went out there, and you know, from the time I was a little kid, I read Bob Dylan and Jack Kerouac and Jack London and Woody Guthrie, and I always wanted to be somebody that, you know, hot freight trains or went to sea or whatever, you know. And so I became like this migrant political and community organizer, and I just was like a drinking tour of America. I would just drink in Oregon, and then we'd work, and I loved it. And you know, the thing with me is that when everything's going okay, I can just have 3 or 4 drinks and stop. And when I like what I'm doing, and if I don't like what I'm doing, then, well, you know, then things go bad. And so I liked what I was doing, and I just had a lot of fun. And you know, we're pretty good BSers, and I talked them into letting me manage political campaigns. So somebody was running for governor of Florida or the U.S. Senate in Virginia or something, and I would just go and manage their campaign. And I became a champion freeloader, and among other things. And I would go, some guy would be running for governor of Florida, and some rich guy that lived in Miami would let the out-of-state organizer come and stay at his house as a contribution to the campaign. That would be me. And I would drink his booze and eat his food and walk his dogs and date his daughter. And then when the campaign was over, I still wouldn't leave. I'd just stay like another month. I really like it here, you know. And now I think it's like my karma that so many people have come to my house and never left, you know, since I'm sober. I remember my friend, Rob. Rob used to live on my sofa, and I'd be like, Rob, my friend Rob's here. He's a newcomer. And he'd be like, I'm not a newcomer. I have 2 years. I'm like, well, it's time to get the hell off my sofa. So all kinds of bad things started happening. My friend Henry was running for governor of Virginia, and I was working for him a little bit, and I was riding my bicycle in Virginia Beach, and I was very drunk, and I had a spectacular bicycle accident. And I smashed my head, and I had slurred speech and short-term memory loss. But when you're drunk all the time, you have slurred, your speech is slurred and you don't remember anything. So nobody noticed, you know, and no one noticed I was in this condition. And so like my friend Henry, he loved Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter was going to announce his campaign for president out in the southwestern part of Virginia, where Virginia and West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee meet. And we were going to have all these tens of thousands of people in music and media and everything. And Henry thought that I would be just the right person to do it. So he sent me out there not knowing that I'm in this condition. of slurred speech, short-term memory loss, and drinking a quart of gin a day, mourning the loss of whatever the hell her name was, you know. Now and out, and I just screwed it all up. I had the band come on the wrong day. I sent a Volkswagen Bug to the airport for 12 members of the press. And the worst thing was Carter's. We were out of booze, right? And the plane was way late, like 5 minutes late. So I told James at Livingston, go get some booze, you know. So the plane lands and there's like no car. So he's like, Peter, where's the car? I go, oh, funny, you should ask, Governor. And so anyway, we had to rent a car for him. And my credit card got declined, so Carter had to use his own credit card. We were late for the rally. My friend Henry was livid. He was so mad at me. I just screwed it all up. And so then later on, even worse things. I was in Iowa, in the Iowa caucuses, and I got a call from this guy. I was working for this guy, Fred Harris, who was a U.S. Senator from wherever he was from, Oklahoma. And he's a great guy. He's running for president. So he said, would you be in charge of my New Hampshire primary? I go, great. You know, so I went up there, and I'm still short-term memory loss, slurred speech, drinking a quart of gin, but morning loss of some new girl now. And I screwed that all up, too. And I ended up, like one day I was sitting at my desk, and the right side of my face got numb, and the left side, oh, incidentally, this guy let's see, where is he from? He was from Rhode Island, Michael Federico. He and I drank a lot of red wine the night before and listened to the Bob Dylan Desire album. And in the morning, I just realized, oh, my God, I just drank the most I've ever drank in my life. So I was sitting at my desk, and the right side of my face got numb, left side of my body got numb. I got confused and scared, and I was not work for years. They rushed me to the hospital. I was so sick. And no one ever, you know, like we know, like I had banged my head. I fell on the ice up there and hit my head another time a couple days before that. Plus, I replaced some guy that was very popular, so the cook put some stuff in my breakfast. I don't know, decon or what it was. And so, like, a fourth of the doctors thought I was poisoned. A fourth of the doctors thought I had head trauma. A fourth of the doctors thought I just was nuts, you know. And so, I mean, we never really, but I know one thing is it was a result of my alcoholism. If I wasn't a drunk, you know, and if I wasn't such an arrogant shit, they wouldn't have poisoned me, you know. I mean, come on, you know. And so anyway, I had this girlfriend/nurse named Mary, and she went to UCSB, so she brought me out here. And I taught a little bit of political science at UCSB, but mostly I just laid on the beach, you know. And if I would leave our apartment, and I would get so scared if I got a block away, I'd have to run home. I was scared to leave the apartment, and I would be dying. I'd call the psychiatrist, Dick, I'm dying. He'd say, well, take 10 milligrams of Valium. I go, no, I'm really dying. Well, take 20 milligrams of Valium then, you know, like so. So that was going on for a while. So, you know, I if I had one beer, I would get deathly sick. But I worked really hard to get my tolerance back, you know, so I could drink 4 beers without getting sick. Well, who else but an alcoholic would do that? The reason being, when we're alcoholics, we can't keep drinking. Because we're in trouble with our spouse, in trouble with our family, in trouble with our boss, in trouble with the police, in trouble with the criminal justice system. We have medical problems, mental health problems, so we just can't keep drinking. But we can't stop drinking because we don't know how to live without alcohol. So that's like the rock and the hard place that we're between when we get here. So that was my first time between the rock and the hard place. So so anyway, now I got my tolerance back, and I thought, Santa Barbara is such a nowhere place, right? And so not only am I not scared to leave the apartment, now I'm like it's way too important to be in Santa Barbara. So I moved to San Francisco, and I got 2 jobs. I got a job running a humane society and a job as a firefighter for the city. And this is going great. And now I'm going to school. I'm going to USF. I'm in my 5th senior year now, right? Things are going pretty good. I'm controlling and enjoying my drinking. I like what I'm doing. It's really fun. And then comes a part of my story. My friend Art always made the sign of the cross. I met this girl, Amy, right? And she came to volunteer at the Animal Welfare Agency. We had this door-to-door humane education program. And it was just, oh, God, I don't know what it was, but it was like an affliction, you know, and if I don't ever feel like that again, it would be fine, you know, and so anyway, it gets to be the end. the end of, something I didn't mention. We were about the same age. I was 33 and she was 18. So it gets to be time for her to go back to school at Cal for her sophomore year. And she doesn't really want to, continue our relationship. I was shocked by that. I thought, you know what? Why wouldn't she, And so I felt bad. So I went down to Murphy Street in Sunnyvale, where they have George Jones on the jukebox, if drinking don't kill me, your memory will, and stuff like that. And I got drunk on her. And I stayed drunk for like 3 years. I didn't mean to. And I lost my job at the fire department. I lost my job at the Humane Society. Now I'm kicked out of school, and things are really bad. I end up losing my place to stay. Oh, and I was, I really loved this girl, and, I thought, I'd get really drunk and visit her at work, And I thought, that's always a sign of caring. Come on. And I would call up her father in the middle of the night. He was president of the American Psychiatric Association. He was taught medicine at Stanford. He was a psychiatrist. And I'd say, Doctor, may I speak to Amy? He'd say, no, is this an emergency, son? Yes, she just left the bar with a Coke dealer. We'll call back tomorrow. So I lost my place to live, right? Oh, listen to this. I'd go into a bar, right, and I'd start telling the bartender about Amy, and after about the third day, I'd say, why don't you just go drink somewhere else? Or I'd walk into a bar, and the bartender would say, Amy, right? And I'd say, I've already been. I have to just walk out and leave. And everybody had a nickname for me. The name of the animal welfare agency I worked for was called Pets in Need, and everybody called me Pete's in Need. So I'd be going down the street, I will wet my pants or something, and they'd be like, oh, shit, here comes Pete's in Need. And they'd try to get away from me. This guy got hit by a car, right, on the El Camino. So I'm like, you know what? Serves you right. I was only going to try to borrow $2, and so all along the El Camino there in Palo Alto, no matter which bar you worked at, selling both alcohol and cocaine, you slept, all the bartenders lived in this old house in Menlo Park that looked like a haunted house. And they let me live there on the floor with a shaggy dog named Bob. I had to share the floor with him in the living room. Bob didn't like sharing the floor with me anymore than I liked sharing with him. He growled at me every night when I lay down and went to sleep. And then these guys would all come home at 3 in the morning after the bars closed. They have all this booze and all this dope, and we'd party. I'd come 2 in the morning. There'd just be a sea of people laying all around my bedroom there, the living room. And so I'd get up, and I'd be like, I'd try to find a, can of beer that didn't have a cigarette butt in it, and drink that. And then I'd be like, oh, man, I need a cigarette butt. But, when you snort cocaine all night, there's not too many, the butts aren't too long. You know what I mean? So, you like one, you can't because it's all, strong and everything. So then I would just start going through everybody's pants pockets to get some change, to go get some cigarettes and beer. They'd be like, oh, that's probably just Pete Sidney going through our pants pockets like he does every morning, And I woke up like that every day, and I would, for a year, and I would go down to, there was a Pete's Coffee shop there, which was, I think, the first Pete's Coffee, the one that's in Berkeley. And I would go have a latte, and I'd go sit on a bench, and it'd be cold. And I'd be like, oh, I think I'll make a phone call. So I'd walk over to the payphone. But you know what? I couldn't think of anybody to call. I didn't have a person in the world to call. Nobody. And so I ended up going to Santa Cruz because, they have a soup kitchen by the roller coaster and everything. And I got to stay in the St. George Hotel, which is a luxury hotel. When it was built during the Civil War, it wasn't a luxury hotel. And the county pays for you to stay there. And the whole place would be like on a big tilt, And when you walk down the hall to the men's bathroom, you'd be walking. You could put an orange on the floor, just roll to the wall. My next door neighbor was Richard. Cool guy, And Richard was from Marin County. And I'm like, Richard, how long did you live in Marin County? He goes, 30 years. I go, wow, cool. I'm like, where did you live there? San Quentin? I thought, I should have known that. Richard looked like Charles Manson, right? And he used to let me watch him shoot up, and I was so fascinated by that. And Richard had instant coffee, which was like gold because the tap water was hot enough to make instant coffee, and peanut butter, so I'm sticking with Richard, And so I would pick up cigarette butts off the street and beg for food at the back door restaurants. Oh, then I got a job as a dishwasher in a French restaurant, so I'm now polishing off a bottle of Dom Perignon every night. Or if things were not so good, some mums, and that's how we are. So there was this guy, and I got to get sober here. So let's see. Gosh, so sorry. So, let's see. Then it got worse, I can't imagine. So my cousin Amy is a judge in Santa Monica, right? And she always called me Leroy. And she said, Leroy, why don't you come down to Santa Monica and see if we can help you out, stay with me. So I came down to stay with her. It was a nightmare. My dogs were being stashed in this guy's backyard. They looked like ads from the Humane Society. While I drank everything in her house while they dug up her yard. And her next-door neighbors were Chinese, Bill and Ruth. And my dogs would jump over the fence, poop in their yard, and then steal all their shoes and bring them over into my cousin's yard. This was not good for neighborly relations for my cousin. So the guy put up all these punji sticks so my dogs would impale themselves. Who has to worry about today, like stuff like that. So anyway, my cousin went away for the weekend, and my mom sent me $1,000 to move out of my cousin's house with. And I thought to myself, I wouldn't really need this whole $1,000 to move out. So I had a moving out party. And I got some cocaine. I got my drug of choice, which was Tanqueray. And I wasn't dating a lot, not surprising. So I got a couple of dates out of the Yellow Pages. And I had a moving out party, And in the morning, I'll never forget, there's like 11 cents left of the $1,000. Like, oh, my cousin's going to kill me, And I went into the bathroom to throw up, and it was all blood. And I saw all. I was this little kid. My grandfather delivered me. He helped name me. He wanted me to have his medical practice after him. I was this altruistic little kid that loved everybody, and everybody loved him, and I'd made some sort of contribution already, and I saw I was just a street drunk. I was just like those guys in Santa Monica and 3rd Street Promenade laying in the doorsteps. I was just a public drunk, and it terrified me. And I got down on my knees in my cousin Amy's kitchen, and I said, God, please help me. God, please help me. So I got up, and who to call? So I called AA, right? And the guy answered the phone, and he said, well, I'll have someone call you. So I hung up, and and the phone rang about a minute later. It was Jim Barracks. And he said, hi. He said, where do you live? I said, I live on 10th Street in Santa Monica. He said, so do I. I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I hung up the phone. And he says, do you think you can go without drinking for the rest of the day? I go, sure. As soon as I hung up the phone, I pounded down a couple of Heinekens right away, So he picked me up. Well, you're certainly calm for a newcomer, yeah. So I always say if I knew they were going to be my last two, I would have had, 4. So I got here, right in this very room, and there was a restaurant upstairs when I got here. That's like such a dinosaur I am. They used to have, like 30 years ago, whatever, they had a restaurant upstairs. And they bought me a hamburger and a big book, and I came down here. And when we were holding hands and saying Lord's Prayer, I just started to cry, and I just knew I was all done, And the book says we need to be badly mangled, and I'm really lucky because I was really badly mangled. And my first sponsor was Ronnie Weber. He made me say the third step prayer all day long. He made me have 7 commitments. He made me get jobs. Like I had a commitment on Ohio Street. I had like 5 coffee pots right in the back of my cousin's car. And one day Ronnie was here, and he said, "Hey," he said, "this is Bobby. He's a tree trimmer. You're going to go work for Bobby." Well, we didn't know Bobby was there in a court cart. So we went over to Beverlywood to start my day with Bobby, and he was drunk as a dog, and he had these 2 working girls with him, and we went out, And well, I'm scared of heights, so I just sawed all the limbs that were low off the trees, And one of my jobs was to take the girls to the methadone clinic every day at 1, and with the coffee pots in the back of the car, and oh man. So then I got a job in a boiler room, where you call everybody up, and you say, you could, like, they give you the Yellow Pages for Fort Lauderdale, and she goes, Joe's Boat Service, Mildred speaking. I go, hi, can I speak to Mildred? And she goes, this is she. I'm like, Mildred, I just called you last week, and you said if we ever have a sale to call you back, Mildred, everything is 70% off. Are those the Bics or are those the Papermates? And I just hated that. And so my cousin's boyfriend, we knew you didn't want to. So I get kicked out of my cousin's house. And I went to live at the Clare Foundation. I went down to the Clare Foundation, and I knew they didn't have any beds, so I got down on my knees and asked God for them to take me in. And that's when I met this guy, Art East. He was about 80 years old. He was a cool guy. And he always knew what to say. He said, well, if you're going to live here, you might as well know where the coffee is. And Art, he said, you need a car. And he gave me his mother-in-law's car. You need a job. He got me a job working in a liquor store. And he says, you need another job. He got me a job in charge of fundraising and public relations for the foundation. And Art was always there. I'd run out of gas at like 3 in the morning, and he'd come out at 80 years old with a gas can. I'd be all embarrassed. He'd say, well, that's what friends are for. And I always wanted to be like Art. I rented this house down in Hawthorne and took all these newcomers in, and they burglarized the neighbors, caught the house on fire, overdose, psychiatric emergencies. I'd put them in the mental hospital. They'd make me belts, but I stayed sober, And So I'm also a recovering guru. I used to have about 10 guys I sponsored and have them come to my house every Wednesday night. And then one Wednesday, I just told them, I don't really know anything, and you guys shouldn't come back. And we were all relieved, all of us. And for a time during my guruship, I lived in my car behind the Marina Center, and that was humbling to be a guru who lives in his car. So then this guy, Tom, that was a coffee maker, he said, why don't you drive, they called my car Pete's Hotel. Just take your hotel, and you can get a job as a messenger with these guys in the Pacific Group. Well, I didn't like them very much, so I started my own messenger service. And today I have like one of the biggest messenger services there is, and I'm really lucky, and it's failed many times. I'd come to work and they say, Pete, all the checks that you wrote bounced and everybody quit. Oh, well, we'll do better tomorrow. I just would never admit it failed, And now I'm just like, I'm cooking. Now I'm like, a frog that fell in a vat of milk, and he just kept splashing around because he didn't want to drown. He just ended up sitting on a big brick of butter, and I did because I didn't drink and I didn't give up. And I have a great life today. I mind my own business in sobriety. My friend Mike is here. Mike, I was new, and I was behind the Claire Foundation playing my guitar. Ooh, Amy, So Mike has like 35 years or something. He goes, what's wrong with you? So, and he took me out to lunch. I hadn't been like in a restaurant for like 15 years or something. I'm like, what are these for? Oh, it's a fork. Oh, all right, so. So it's like great, and so I don't have any, I don't pay attention to what you do, so therefore I don't judge you, and if I don't judge you, I don't resent you, and I'm just happy. I'll help you, but that's about it. And then my pal Tommy is here tonight. Tommy is from my house. Apparently Forensic Files is over until 10 o'clock. We watch it every night. We know all the coroners. So, so anyway, my sponsor Howard has me meditating. Meditation is very important. Howard taught me the faith is very important. I'll stop in 1 minute. I wrote a great inventory, and it started when I was born, and it ended just when I came in here to see Howard with it. And Howard knew he was in trouble when I asked him to help me carry it up the stairs, right? So we went upstairs, and John Brill, who owned this building, rest his soul, is a great guy. We sat at his desk, and Howard listened, and he'd kind of nod off, and you did what? I go, I slept with his wife. You don't do that again. No, and he'd nod off again, And I made amends, and my hardest amends was I wrecked my best friend Andy's wedding in Oregon. And I went and found him, and his wife came up to me, Mary Jones, she gave me a hug and a kiss, and she said, Petey, we love you. When are you going to come and stay with us again? That was the most healing thing in the world. We're all so scared, there's nothing to be scared of. I mean, I have some amends that aren't around here. My buddy Muggs in Joliet, Illinois, there's just some people that you didn't get around to, and then you hope you will, and I hope I do, people that are important to you, but amends are so important, and so what else did I want to tell you? Last quick thing, I once came to this meeting, and it was the Wednesday night meeting. I might have been the secretary, I'm not sure, and there was this guy spoke. His name was Terry Hart, and he gave a great talk, great AA talk. Then he mentions at the end, oh, by the way, he says, I have lung cancer. I'm not supposed to live more than 2 months. I'm like, how could a guy give such a great talk? And so I gave him my card, and I said, you ever need something, give me a call. So a couple weeks later, he needed a couple $100, and he called me, So he ends up in the VA hospital, and I go to the VA hospital, and he had made friends with 2 or 3 other guys just like me, and we were all around his bed every night. We'd bring him Subway sandwiches. He didn't like the VA food, and I'd speak, and I'd take him in his pajamas to go hear me speak. And there was another guy named Bernie and a guy named Greg, and we're all great friends forever. So we went, when Terry died, we went up to the retreat where we have our retreat up at Santa Maria, and we went up there, and Brother Peter was there, and Brother Jared, and everybody, and I had Terry's ashes. Someone else had a picture of Terry. Someone had some flowers. Brother Peter had the massive Christian burial, and we all walked up this huge hill to the top of the hill. And it was a beautiful windy day, and all the tall grass was blowing back and forth, and all the dogs were loping through the grass, and the monks all had their brown robes with the rope belts on, and we went up to the very top where all the Capuchins are buried that came from Ireland back in the 1800s. And Brother Peter said, he said, we priests need inspiration. And the way I watched the way you guys took care of Terry, and it gave me inspiration to be a good priest for another year. And it was just and there was a guy named Bernie, and he was there, and he ended up in the hospital. He said, Pete, he said, I need my hospital pal. So I went to the hospital, and I sat with Bernie, and he died shortly thereafter. And it was really sad, and I got a letter from his son, and he said I was going through, and Bernie introduced me to the opera. And he always had seats in the front row because he was a big donor. And anyway, his son said, I was going through my dad's things, I came across my dad's opera tickets, and I know he would want you to have them. And they're like in the front row, and I've renewed them for years and years. You can't get them, and I always think of them when I'm there. And these are just all the wonderful things that I've been on the wrong track so many times. You think you can find the right boyfriend or girlfriend or the right job or enough money or be able to run the marathon, and it doesn't make you happy. The love that we share with each other here and the help that we give to each other here, it's everything. And I miss my friend Gino, who's not here tonight. I love him so much, and he's gone forever, and I always think of him when I come here, but it's the way it is. But anyway, I want to thank Michelle for asking me. You're all nice to listen to me, and God bless you all.